I'm Mike Wilbon. This week, I've done shows from D.C., Chicago, New York. I was trying to get to L.A.
I'm Tony Kornheiser. I've done shows from right there, and now right here. Our director, Tom Howard, often asks me to move as much as 4 inches to my right. But I'm pretty much in the attic, Wilbon. I'm pretty much here.
I was trying to cover 3,000 miles, Tony, for the first time since March.
That would have been very exciting for you. I don't really go 3,000 miles. That's about 12 steps up, and that's about it. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Celtics try again. College basketball gets the green light, and Bruce Arians says he and Tom Brady are on the same page. But we begin today with the U.S. Open at Winged Foot. Justin Thomas, who already has one major, took the early lead with a 5 under 65. Patrick Reed, who also has a major, was next at 66, including a hole-in-one. And Tiger Woods, who has 3,000 majors and had cruised along at even for most of his round, well, he bogeyed 17, he doubled 18, he ended up +3. Wilbon, I've watched all day. I know you have too. What's your takeaway from round one so far?
That everybody who was talking about how hard the course is going to be, including you, looks pretty silly right now. The course wasn't hard, okay? I was at a much harder course with these same players a couple of weeks ago at Olympia Fields. Tony, 65, 66, what are we talking about? Now, I realize there was no real wind, okay? And I realize it's the first day. But, I mean, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the U.S. Open because of all the hype. Hype. The scores are going to be 5 and 6 over. And, Tony, I realize the history of Winged Foot for the U.S. Open as a U.S. Open venue is just that. But that ain't what we were treated to today so far. And guys seem to be having a relatively easy time in the context of the United States Open.
Well, I'll give you some people who are over at this point. Let's see. I have notes, and the notes aren't even any good. Kuchar is +4, Morikawa is +6, Sergio's +4, Justin Rose is +3, Spieth is +3. But I agree with you. The course
only
seemed
Justin Rose
receptive.
surprises me out of that group.
It seemed receptive. People could go for pins and stuff like that. I mean, I just have very small impressions here. I did find out that Rory McIlroy, if he opens 67 or better in a major, he wins it. He's won 3 times at 67 or better.
Open 67.
I love the fact that Justin Thomas had the sand save, I believe, on 17, and then a birdie on 18. I was sad for Tiger. But Patrick Reed, who you hate him because he wears red on Sunday, because you don't want him to be like Tiger, even though Tiger loves him. How are you with his red pants? Were you okay with his red pants?
I've come to this place. You know how when you dislike people for a while, and then sometimes you realize, I know in your case, because I've said to you, you got to turn it around. You have no reason to hate this guy. You go, yeah, I don't. I mean, I have no real reason to hate Patrick Reed other than most of the golfers, most of the guys on tour hate him. I'm okay with it. You know, he's a star. Patrick Reed is a star. DeChambeau, who is also widely disliked on the tour, he's a star. So these guys, it's fine, Tony. Let me say this about Rory. When Rory walked off, to show you how receptive Winged Foot is today, Rory was like 67, You know, there was more out there to be had. I think Rory thought he should have shot 65. But I mean, it's a great start for him.
It surprised me because everybody at Winged Foot said it's going to be hard. I was watching the Golf Channel early this morning, and Justin Leonard said he would kick his feet up on Sunday and take off his shoes if he was +2 on Sunday. So we got a bunch of days to go. But, I mean, it had here's Phil Mickelson on a cloudy day wearing shades and opening up birdie, bogey.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, then he sort of settled down. Let me just say this. I watched the Golf Channel to catch live from the U.S. Open until 5 a.m. You probably started at 3:30 a.m.
I picked it up at 5 a.m. And by the way, I've played Winged Foot once in my life. I think I shot a smooth 121. So
that's good. That's great. That's good. Let's move to college basketball. The NCAA cleared teams to start playing as soon as November 25th. Schools can play up to 25 games plus 1 tournament or as few as 13 and still qualify for the NCAA tournament. Some mid-majors are concerned that Power 5 programs will cut them out of their schedules. So, Tony, does the college basketball plan seem sound to you?
I'm really glad they're going to play. I'm really glad that they're going to start right around Thanksgiving when a lot of schools are going to send their students home for an extended winter break, so there won't be a lot of people on campus. I'm really glad there's a national coherent policy for basketball, which there isn't in football, where you have these big conferences acting like feudal states. I am really glad, Mike, that they're going to keep the tournament to 68, and they rejected this stupid plan by ACC coaches to bring in 4,000 schools. And I'm also glad for your conference. I'm glad the Big Ten hasn't decided to drop out yet. I'm happy for that.
Yeah, I know. Somebody who can make fun of somebody else's conference who went to where? Oh, yeah, Binghamton. Somewhere out there across one of those bodies of water
we rule,
from where
America
I am
East.
now. Yeah, the America East really floats the boat.
Yeah.
I'm glad, I guess. You know, Tony, I'm glad. I still am in a position. Look, I don't know if we are better, but we think we're better. We think we're better off, and we in sports have come back, and we see things without fans or very few fans, and you're trying things, and you've got improved, increased, faster testing in some ways, which is why, in part, the Big Ten football season is back. So, look, Tony, if all those things can operate and help you get these sports out there and get kids doing what they want to do and what schools doing with revenue streams, all that's good. But let me just say, November 25, Tone, if you listen to the science, and I know despite your now trying to sidle up and smooch up to the SEC and the Big 12, I know where you live, I know how you vote, I know who you are. By November 25, we're supposed to be, according to scientists, some of who live down the street from both of us, NIH,
second wave.
We're supposed to be in flu season. Yeah. So so let's not get so ahead of ourselves like Winged Foot is going to crush everybody. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Well, let me just go back on a couple of things. I am perfectly okay not having interconference games at the beginning of the season on aircraft carriers or in the Bahamas. I hope people stay close to home and they stay within their conferences. To your point, though, about mid-majors, they need to play high-end, tough schools to build a resume to say that they have strength of schedule. We're talking about schools like Gonzaga last year, Dayton, VCU, schools like that. So I see how it would be tough. You know how you solve that, Mike? The selection committee works a little bit harder, and they see more games, and they watch mid-majors play, and they make a determination as to who's good. You just work a little bit harder. Let's go now to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and America's new fun couple, Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. You'll remember after Tampa Bay lost to New Orleans, Arians was pointedly critical of Brady's play, criticizing his throws, saying he needed to show more grit. Well, now Arians is saying, and I quote, "Tom and I are fine. I don't care what other people think. It's just what he and I think. There ain't nothing to talk about," unquote. Wilbon, let's give him something to talk about right here.
Oh, yeah. There's plenty to talk about, and Brett Favre was talking about it. So, and Brett Favre has more credentials than Bruce Arians, okay? So if we're going to talk about who's higher in the NFL food chain over the last 25 to 30 years, it's Brett Favre. And all of Brett Favre's points made sense. Now, I will say this. There had to be so many things, particularly early on, that Tom Brady did not particularly like about Bill Belichick. But the NFL ain't the NBA, and it ain't Major League Baseball, and you just don't say, hey, I'm out of here, or you don't hire or fire the coach. It doesn't work that way. So Bruce Arians sort of has Brady over a barrel, if you will. Brady's got to take this. There's nothing he can do. Make his shoot back on social media, but that's not Tom Brady's way. You talk about an ultimate team guy, other than screaming at his lineman on Sunday when he gets sacked. He's a team guy through and through to his core. So he's got to take it, right?
No, yes, to some degree, but we're coming up on an election, and I want to talk about a great phrase from election night, which is let's wait until all the precincts are in. Arians may think there's no problem. We haven't heard from Brady yet. It's like Matt LaFleur may think there's no problem with Aaron Rodgers, but I think maybe there is a problem. In this particular case, I was stunned. As you know, I went on this show after Arians said these things, and I said, what? How many rings does Arians have exactly that he would criticize Brady? Brady's not out of college, Mike. He's not some kid. Right. He's a man. He's 43 years old.
That's right.
And if you make him angry and you destroy him psychologically because you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you end up with Blaine Gabbert. Blaine Gabbert. Is that what you want?
But what can Brady? Brady has no recourse in this league. This ain't the NBA where you can get a coach, no matter how prominent, fired before the All-Star break. It's not
You
that
don't have
league.
to get him
Brady's
fired.
got to eat this.
Well, to some degree he does. You're right. Because he's not trying to get Bruce Arians fired. But I think the problem with Bruce Arians may be that he thinks he's the smartest guy in the world. And it's like that college guy, Mike Leach, who thinks he's smarter than everybody else all the time. You got Tom Brady. Back off a little bit. Let's take a break.
I agree.
Coming up, they play tonight. Could Joe Burrow have a better season than Wilbon's boy Baker Mayfield?
Talk about two guys we shouldn't care about yet. And will the Celtics get Kemba Walker, who we should care about, on track against the Heat tonight? By the way, Tony, Arians points out my big point again. Head coaching in the NFL. Way down from 30 years.
It's time for Toss Up, where Wilbon plays the role of Jason Tatum and I play the role of Bam Adebayo. Big block, left-handed. What's first?
Toss Up. Who do you like in tonight's Game 2, the Heat or the Celtics?
It's Game 2. I'm not backing off the Celtics just yet. I mean, it's Game 2. Gordon Hayward has been upgraded to doubtful. Probably won't play, but it does.
Probably won't.
You do get the sense he might play during this series.
Game 3 or 4.
Boston has bounced back. They've had to bounce back from psychologically crushing defeats, but they need Kemba Walker. Wilbon, I've got stats here that are almost mind-blowing. In his last 3 games, he's got only 38 points. He's shooting 28% from the field, 14% from 3, and on the other end as a defender, the guys he's guarded have got 71 points, and they're shooting 56% from 3. He's got to be better. He's got to be better.
If he can be better. You know, the playoff, Tony, has sort of, guys have gone after smaller players, and it really goes back to a time that hurts me to even mention it. The 2011, probably goes back further than that. But with this generation of players, goes back to 2011 when LeBron James and the Miami Heat really did attack Derrick Rose defensively with the Bulls, and they won that conference final after trailing 1-0. And so I wonder about this with Kemba Walker. Now, it doesn't seem to me that Miami's the kind of team that is going to just restructure everything they do. But there's a toughness about Miami that I think that starts at the top, and Pat Riley, and goes down through Spo and Jimmy Butler and all those guys. Tonight's going to be a tough game. I think Boston gets tonight's game because I'm counting on a 6 or 7 game series. But, Tony, I mean, Miami, man, it's going to be interesting to see how they come out. And are they going to go after Kemba Walker? The numbers that you just read suggest they should and that they might.
I think Miami's a very good team. I think everybody plays their roles very well. It's a good team. Next.
Last one, toss-up. They play each other tonight. Who do you expect to play better this season, Joe Burrow or Baker Mayfield?
So there is a good statistic here right at the top. Baker Mayfield had an NFL low in Week 1, 4.9 yards per attempt. I know that Mayfield is your personal punching bag, and I like Burrow a lot. I really love Burrow on the last drive. But to answer this question, I think Mayfield is going to have a better season for a variety of reasons. It's tough for young passing quarterbacks to come into the league and have great success. It wasn't that way with Peyton Manning. It wasn't that way with Troy Aikman. Mayfield's got better receivers, I think. And you know what? If Mayfield has a bad year, he could be out of the league, certainly be out of those commercials he's in. So I will say, as much as I like Burrow, that Mayfield will have a better year.
You talk about two guys I don't care about. Actually, I like Joe Burrow. I like his feistiness on that great touchdown run he had last week. I like the last drive he had when they might have gotten hosed on the offensive pass interference call. So I like Burrow, and I find myself being able to root for Burrow. I thought the Cleveland Browns were going to come out and be better. It didn't mean I thought they were going to win Week 1 in Baltimore, but I thought they'd be competitive, not 38-6 or whatever that was. Tony, I don't know. I mean, Baker Mayfield, is he one of those guys we're going to keep counting on and waiting for and go, where'd he go? Oh, well, he was traded to the Jets. I mean, it just seems like that's in the offing if he doesn't play better. I'm going to say that Baker Mayfield is going to have the better season. It's going to get better, but it needs to start this week, not in like Week 8. It needs to start tonight.
So what's interesting about this is that's a really tough Week 1 draw at Baltimore.
Baltimore,
they were terrible.
But you could be competitive.
That's a tough draw.
You could look competitive. Yeah. They weren't even competitive.
Burrow's stats and Mayfield's stats were very similar last week. That's it. Obviously, I win. Let's take one last break, but still to come, Bill Belichick says that Russell Wilson is underrated.
He must be playing him this week. On to Seattle.
I think, yeah.
And the Pac-12 hints at when their conference football season might start up again.
Boy, did they cave. They just caved like a house of cards. The Pac-12, get out of here. Just stop. Don't bother us anymore. Look how my hat matches my shirt. Very cool. Happy time, people. Happy 25th birthday, Patrick Mahomes. You may have thought he'd be good, but not this good, not this soon. Mahomes is a prodigy. He was the 10th overall pick in the 2017 draft out of Texas Tech, where he played for Cliff Kingsbury, who's now coaching Wilbon's Arizona Cardinals. And he once threw for 734 yards against Oklahoma. Mahomes sat in Kansas City for a year, watching Alex Smith and learning from him. He took over the starting position and threw for 50 touchdowns and won the MVP. In his next season, he won the Super Bowl. He has a 25-7 record, 79 touchdowns, only 18 interceptions. In the playoffs, he's 4-1 with 13 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. In 2018, before Mahomes had even thrown one NFL touchdown pass, Kingsbury said, quote, "I truly believe he will be the highest paid player in the history of the game when his contract comes up. I think he's that good," unquote. This past July, Mahomes signed a 10-year extension that could pay him $503 million. It is the largest contract in the history of American professional sports.
You just hope he stays healthy long enough to realize all this enormous potential, which started with a Super Bowl championship when he's so young. He was so great, Tony. It was so evident when he was sitting as like a redshirt season in Kansas City that Matt Nagy, who was on that staff then, he still wants to coach him. He doesn't want to coach the guy, either one of them he's got in Chicago. He wants to coach Mahomes. I mean, truly, there's no amount of overhype on this guy, is there?
No, he's the best. Happy anniversary, Deion Sanders. On this day 32 years ago, with number 10 Florida State trailing number 3 Clemson in Death Valley, Deion Sanders turned toward the Clemson sideline and barked that he was going to take this punt to the house. And indeed, Deion went 76 yards for a touchdown. Now, this was before Deion was prime time. This was before he went to the NFL and became so feared as a DB that quarterbacks would not throw anywhere near him. This is when Deion was at Florida State, and Florida State under Bobby Bowden was great. This particular Florida State team went 10-1. In the 1990s, Florida State was the most successful college football team in the country, winning 89% of their games. From 1987 to 2000, Florida State finished in the top 5 of the AP Final Poll 14 years in a row, an NCAA record. Florida State now is hot garbage. After a volatile offseason with several players complaining about how the coaching staff handled the coronavirus, Florida State is 0-1 under new coach Mike Norvell after losing to Georgia Tech.
Tony, doesn't Bobby Bowden, by the way, just look greater and greater the longer we get away from his reign? And Deion, look, there are two guys who just on returns alone should be in the Hall of Fame, Devin Hester and Deion. The difference is Devin Hester did one thing. That specialty should get him there. Deion could do everything. Deion could have been a Hall of Famer if he was a full-time receiver, and he wasn't. Deion could have been a Hall of Famer as a full-time DB, which he was essentially full-time. I mean, Deion's just one of the greatest players in the history of pro football, all 100 years of it.
Absolutely. Happy trails to the Rockies' attempt to tag out Tony Kemp. The A's second baseman was at third base last night in the third inning of a scoreless game. Kemp decided to run home on a ground ball to first. Rockies' first baseman, Josh Fuentes, fielded the ball, ran a bit towards third, and then fired it to Nolan Arenado, trapping Kemp in a dreaded rundown between third and home. Ultimately, Kemp commits to home. Arenado's throw to Fuentes' covering appears to have Kemp dead, but Kemp flies through the air like Spider-Man and avoids the tag. Plays like this are why the A's are in first place in the AL West.
I thought he tagged him, by the way. Maybe he didn't. I don't know if there was any replay or appeal of that. Let me just say this, by the way, Tony. The Oakland A's are 6.5 games up on the Houston Astros, the now largely despised Houston Astros, who may still get to the playoffs anyway. But that's sort of been overlooked because there's so much talk about the Yankees all the time.
A's are really good. Let's go to the big finish.
Good. Let's do it.
Charlotte canceled this weekend's game with the University of North Carolina due to COVID exposure on its offensive line. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad, despite people so worried about the PR of it, that certain conferences are taking seriously the health and safety of their players, staff, students, everybody, and maybe they won't have as many people testing positive at those schools in those conferences. Pac-12 commissioner, speaking of, Larry Scott, says the best case scenario for his conference is to start by early November. What do you make of that?
I want them to play. I want everybody to play. But under Larry Scott, the Pac-12 has become completely irrelevant in basketball and football. One of the greatest conferences of all time. Nobody even knows they exist anymore.
Used to be.
Bill Belichick says he doesn't see anyone better than Russell Wilson. Really? You agree with that?
That's all he sees. Bill Belichick's going to Seattle this week in a game I cannot wait to see, man. Talk about matching of everything from wits to the physical play of those two quarterbacks, Cam Newton and Russell Wilson. Lightning Islanders tonight. Do your Isles force a Game 7?
Look, I hope so. I mean, I'm a Long Island boy. I remember Trottier and Bossy and Potvin. I hope so, but I think the other team's better. Last one, Cleveland's Shane Bieber can become the first pitcher to 8 wins tonight. Do you like his chances?
Yeah, the Indians have lost 8 straight. It's time for that to be over. Detroit's a little better, but Bieber will win that game, win that start.
Try to do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser. We're out of time this time.
I'm Mike Wilbon, back on ESPN tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts.
Wingfoot, best logo in sports.